So mixed reality at Microsoft, we really believe that this is the future of computing and the future of human interaction. As Alistair said, I'm a distinguished engineer at Microsoft, HoloLens, and also the president of the International Society for Optics and Photonics. Few words about me. As Alistair mentioned, I started in Strasbourg in academia at the University of Strasbourg, but I also spent a few months in Worcester at the Worcester Polytechnic Institute as an associate professor in the early 90s, which is very close to Boston. I actually got a Strasbourg-Boston scholarship to study there. Then I went to King's College, and then I went to the Silicon Valley to stop my academia activities and really jump into startup entrepreneurship with I created about 10 startups in the Silicon Valley. I have to say, none of them really made it as an investor would call it to make it. But, nevertheless, we opened a few startups. We raised 85 million in one, 4 million in the other. But we didn't really make it big as per investor would say. And then I started large corporations, starting with Siemens and then Google X Labs and Microsoft right now. But the common backbone, which is really an advice to all entrepreneurs, is to, you can have a diverse path as me, academia, startup entrepreneurship, and large corporation, but you really want to have a backbone. And for me, the backbone was optics and photonics, which is a constant and the same involvement in the International Society for Optics and Photonics. So for the past year, I served 30 years, sorry, I served many successive high-tech booms, the optical computing from the early 90s, then the optical telecom boom, which crashed, of course, with the internet explosion in 2000, the optical data storage, and now the AR, VR, MR. But this is also another advice that I have for you. Beware, everything is in motion in the high-tech industry. There's no status quo. Anticipate the next booms by being a savvy industry news reader and technologist, by participating in international meetings and events and networking, just like Alistair proposes today with your peers. So let's look a little bit at XR or MR, mixed reality. Well, it didn't really get impacted by COVID. It didn't really get impacted by COVID, but even worse, better, I should say, is that COVID actually boosted tremendously the adoption of XR. Here you can see the monthly connected headsets on Steam, which are VR headsets, and boosted from 1 million to 2 million in the first 2 months of the pandemic, which is amazing. And of course, AR and VR will lead the way in a post-pandemic world. So what is the next big thing? Well, of course, you have to look at Gartner. Gartner is really the industry analyst, that every startup should really look at, the hype cycle. And what did Gartner find? Well, that the smartphone sales declined 5% in the fourth quarter of 2020, which is the first time. So what is the next big thing? Is it mixed reality? Well, at Microsoft, we think that mixed reality is the third wave of computing, personal computers, smartphones, and then mixed reality. And really, it's transforming enterprises by allowing remote collaboration, guided training and task management, training and simulation, sales assistant, design prototyping, and contextual data overlay. But really, most importantly, you have to look at the return on investment and what is the value to enterprise. Well, it's improved skilling, it's improved efficiency and quality gains, and also it empowers first-line workers, which is really important. How do we do this? Well, with the mixed reality stack, which includes, of course, the intelligent devices, as Alistair mentioned, HoloLens 2, but also the mixed reality applications, Dynamics 365, and all the Microsoft partners, of course, the ISVs, and also Azure mixed reality services. Now, if you noticed last month, we actually unveiled our new cloud MR service, which is called Microsoft Mesh. And what is Microsoft Mesh? It's really the core. It's not so much the hardware that is important mixed reality. It's the use case. Imagine that Steve Jobs would have shipped the iPhone without the iTunes. Well, it wouldn't have worked. You need to have the best hardware and the best use case. And the use case here is Mesh. And what is Mesh? Mesh actually allows you to have the sense of presence of another human being with you without this human being being in the same room. So you can actually collaborate. You can collaborate between Strasbourg and Boston, and you can really have the sense of someone being in the room without being in the room. And this, of course, very important for surgical guidance, medical imaging, remote procedures, and teaching. But as you might have noticed, also the Army is very, very interested. Last month, we got $22 billion from the US Army over 10 years to develop headsets for the Army. This is the largest PO. It's not an investment. I have to say this is a purchase order. It's the largest purchase order ever in the history of mixed reality. Magic Leap also is touting another tool such as Mesh. Mark Zuckerberg also has the same idea about presence and real avatars. And when you look at Facebook, you see that almost 1/5 of Facebook employees are today working in VR and AR. This is a lot. This is 10,000 people. This is amazing. Of course, Apple, is doing the same thing, and Apple's coming out with a VR headset and an AR headset. But really, what I want to say, what Alistair is doing is really what we're doing also here with the Society for Optics and Photonics. We're bringing large corporations and startups together along with academia to provide a platform for collaboration. And this happened last month. It was an online event, of course, but usually we have our event in San Francisco at the Moscone Center. And having been elected as the president of the International Society helped me to have some initiatives. This is one initiative that I had before I was elected, was in Strasbourg at the SPA Photonics Europe 2004, 2006, and still going on. This is an initiative for university spin-offs and pre-venture stage startups, the creation of the Photonics Innovation Village. And industry, larger corporations then put a pool in place to give prizes to the most prominent startups there. And that actually happening in Strasbourg every 2 years. Also, something else that's happening in Strasbourg is our initiative to provide students exposure to industry, which is important. Before being a startup entrepreneurship, the entrepreneur is actually a student. And really allowing this exposure is really important. That's what we do with the Optical Design Challenge. And one of them happened in Strasbourg in 2018. You can see the invitation card here. I still have it. And I'm very proud to say that, it had, this is my last slide. It had this Optical Design Challenge had a direct impact on one of the laureates of our 2018 AR/VR/MR Optical Design Challenge in Strasbourg. Stan Larocque, who was a student at that time, got a first prize at this event here, and this gave him this je ne sais quoi to start his own startup, drop out of school, start his own startup, raise money. He just raised. He's actually right now in the Silicon Valley here with me. I just raised $10 million, and has 20 employees in Paris. Well, see, he didn't raise it in Paris. He had to come to the Silicon Valley to raise it, which is an important point. He tried to raise it during 1 year in Paris, could not. He had to come to the Silicon Valley. He's actually living at the mansion of Palmer Luckey, which is the creator of Oculus here in the Silicon Valley. He gave him his house to raise capital and to invite Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. This is Stan Larocque, and I'm super glad that we were able to, exactly as Alistair does, provide this platform for collaboration between large industries, academia, and startups, especially startups, to give the flame of entrepreneurship to a guy, 25-year-old. Actually, at that time, he was 22. Stan, and have him develop his startup. Now, Apple is looking at him. He just had a meeting with Apple here in Cupertino. He had a meeting with Microsoft, of course. He had a meeting with Google, and he had a meeting with Facebook. And really, this is something that you all can do, But the important thing is you can't work in solitary mode. You have to have this exposure that Alistair is really providing through Innovo, or what we're trying to do with the Optical Society. Thank you. That was a message to you this morning.
Thank you. Bernard, so exceptional, the mesh. I hope we will be able to use it during our program. I think that's going to be perfect to meet with people. So I'll look forward to learning more about this as well for the Microsoft Mesh. And indeed, it takes a village to build a company. That's why today we brought that village to you, expert, leaders, executives. Thank you, Bernard, for being here from different areas of the world, different industries, because everything is coming together with the technological revolution 4.0. So it's really important to think outside the box and look at the different elements that are moving.